All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Rewiring Health. I'm so excited to be joined by Tracy Cromwell. She is a certified integrative nutrition and health coach and a personal trainer. So thank you so much, Tracy, for joining me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, Kelly. Really
Yeah,
excited.
me too. I know. I'm so excited for this conversation. I feel like it's going to be so valuable to so many people. So we'll kind of jump right into it. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is, if you just wouldn't mind sharing your story of like, where have you kind of come and what brought you to what you do today?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So, my story. Okay, I was born. No, just kidding.
I know it's a loaded question.
Okay, focused on food. So, let's see. Most of my life, I always felt really tired, lethargic, a bit nauseous. I I didn't know any different about
Mhm.
that. I just felt like, well, everybody else must feel the same, but I couldn't figure out why other kids had more energy. Why were they able to run a long time? How did they, how were they functioning? That somehow there must be something wrong with me in some way because I wasn't like that. And I had really high anxiety as well. And and so there'd be days too. I remember in elementary school where I'd go to school and my heart rate would be pounding really hard and my stomach would hurt. And then I would start to feel better. Then I would have lunch and then my heart rate would go up, my stomach would hurt. I see it now, but
Mhm.
it just was just the way things were. And and so also depending on snacks that I had at night, my mom and dad, they said, well, they want to send me to bed with a hungry tummy. So
Mhm.
have milk and maybe some popcorn. And I'd wake up nauseous in the morning. So I just never had an opportunity to not feel sick.
Mhm.
And so as I got into maybe fifth, sixth grade, it were times when I'd get to school and then my intestinal system would just want to clean out, right?
Mhm.
And so they'd send me home sick, and then I'd be feeling fine within a couple hours. And so then it was developed that maybe I just had an emotional issue and I just had separation anxiety. So, there was never any looking at maybe that my body wasn't able to tolerate the certain foods I was eating. So as I got older and into high school, I also went into that those teen years where number one, you've got teen hormones going through you, but also this food thing where I would bloat out, which then I thought I was fat, because my stomach would be so distended and it would hurt. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't fit in my pants. And so obviously there was something wrong with me and everyone else was eating the same way. And how come they weren't fat? And I
Mhm.
look at
Yeah.
pictures, my poor tummy was bloated,
Yeah.
but I thought I was fat.
Mhm.
So then I started dieting at 18, doing the shakes and all of that. And oh, they were so nasty back then. They
Mhm.
were so they just were
The
awful.
things you do, right? Yeah.
But I started this really hostile relationship with my body. And so I started thinking if things that would go wrong in my life, I figured maybe if my body was perfect, my life would be better. So also I had this really bad relationship with it. And it became um, number one, you're going to eat whatever the heck um, I'm put in your mouth, and you better deal with it kind of attitude.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to exercise you so hard to get you to look the way I want you to look. And so, but then at the same time, if things were distressing in my life, I'd go run and get a donut and I'd run and I try and eat like back then it was Domino's pizza. And I'd say, okay, I'll just get a little one, one little pizza. I'll have half for dinner tonight. I'll have half for dinner tomorrow, but I couldn't I would eat the whole thing. So I look back now, I realized I was using food to solve other issues, I don't want to say the word issues because, but other challenges that I had that were beyond what food was for. But also I realized when I would eat, I'd get an upset stomach. And so I'd eat something else to try and make myself feel better. So with that, then I was eating more energy, had more energy in my body than what I was putting out, which was a bad combo. So a few years later, after yo-yoing and I was, my kids were pretty young and I was doing the step aerobic thing. I was pounding myself every single day to almost the point of vomiting, you know, of exhaustion with weights. And I was doing it every day and my body looked amazing. The crazy part was it still wasn't perfect enough. It could just be that much more perfect. Life would be great. And one day I just was so tired. I was so exhausted. I still remember this day. It's like I was getting dressed to do my aerobics and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. And then guess what? Start putting the weight on. And I was like, I can't win. What am I supposed to do? I'm eating everything they're telling me to eat in the food pyramid. I'm eating my grains, my bread, my pastas, my potatoes. It's what I'm supposed to be eating. So obviously something was wrong with me. So just this relationship kept going and kept going where I looked really good, but I still didn't feel good on the inside. And I couldn't quite figure that out. So long story, there's a lot in the middle there, but finally got to a point where I'd gotten, I was in construction, residential construction management, estimating management at the time. And one day I looked in the mirror and there I was again, 30 pounds plus overweight, hadn't been exercising, drinking, eating chocolate, not sleeping. And then I go to the doctor just for my checkup and they say, well, Tracy, you're pre-diabetic. So it's just another nail in my coffin about what a loser I was, and how my body was deceiving me and was, again, why is it being so awful to me, And so went through this really tumultuous relationship. And that was I think I was 39, 40 when that happened. I'm 56 now. And it was sort of this aspect again of just this volatile misunderstanding that I had with my whole self was creating all of this stuff. And I never wanted to do the work to figure out what was going on, let alone I didn't even know what that work was. So that's a bit of my story of just started when I was very young with not understanding, and it carried on into my my late 30s when finally I got a diagnosis of, okay, something's wrong, not working here. So
there's so many things that stick out to me from what you're saying. And like the one thing is how you're talking about how like my body keeps working against me. And it's like that perception of like, it's, where there's almost like a separation between you and your body. And it's like, when you feel that resistance, it's amazing how you will just do anything to like kind of win that battle, quote, win that battle. But like, when did you start seeing like the evolution of like, where you stop perceiving your body as the enemy and you started seeing it as like, okay, this is me, I need to take care of myself and treat it well.
Right. Well, it was definitely that diagnosis. But I almost hung it up that day saying, okay, well, I am in my late 30s. I'm going into my 40s. They tell me pretty much at that time, your body starts to degrade anyway. And usually you get put on a prescription anyway. And so why didn't I appreciate my body before then? Why didn't I take good care of it? So I had to emotionally flog myself more, and condemn myself even more because, and so it was at that point, but my doctor did say, and the one thing she said to me, it stuck in, she goes, you can do something about this. You have the ability to do something about this. And I'm like, well, what? And she goes, she gave me one piece of advice and then sent me on my way. But that was, eat less refined carbohydrates, eat more whole foods, and off you go. Okay. And so the interesting part was I came home, but I also, it was like this, I almost felt like I had a note from the teacher finally
Mhm.
that I had permission to take care of myself. It was really
Mhm.
interesting. And I thought, okay, I took it home. I talked with my husband and the kids, and I said, this is what I need to do. And um, and so I felt like now maybe they would allow me to take care of myself. And it's,
Mhm.
again, it was an interesting thing where I felt like I didn't have the permission
Yeah. Yeah. I
to,
mean, it makes sense, especially when you're a mom. It's like you're trying to take care of everyone else around you. And
yeah,
especially if you're someone who's like puts others before yourself, it's like
yeah,
you do need almost like to get to that point where you are given permission. And I feel like there's so many people that resonate with that. It's like I'm taking care of
yeah,
everyone else, and meanwhile, like you're suffering yourself, and then you
yeah,
start losing your ability to take care of everyone else around you because you're not taking care of yourself. And
exactly.
so do you feel like that was like the catalyst, like your doctor saying that, or were there other influences that allowed you to kind of move in a different direction?
Yeah, so I realized too. So that note, it was interesting.
Mhm.
And I write about it in my book, was just the significance of that note. And
Yeah.
but I realized as well as I started through the journey was, I started saying, gosh, you know what? I eat food to please others. I I whatever I'm served, I believe I have to eat no matter what it might do to me.
Mhm.
No matter that maybe I feel sick after I eat it. And that then gave me, because my husband loved to make pancakes
Mhm.
and bacon and eggs, in the morning, or cereal, and he loved to cook,
Mhm.
and I loved what he made, but I also felt um, that I needed to eat anything he made.
Mhm.
And so I started to realize I feel sick when I eat breakfast.
Mhm.
What's that about? So I
Mhm.
started to say, okay, gosh, well, it's all refined carbohydrate, very sugary. It turns to sugar. I mean, whoa, wait a minute, I don't feel good. And I didn't associate it with dairy yet, you know,
Yeah. Mhm.
but it was just sort of that thing. And I just started, and when I say just, it's because in this case, I literally just started to say, okay, I love my white rice,
Mhm.
but I'm going to add a little bit of brown rice in that mix, because
Mhm.
I couldn't imagine giving up some of these things. But so it was at that point when I started to finally connect what I put in my mouth
Mhm.
and how it actually physically changed the way I felt,
Yeah.
you
There's
know.
something that like I just from listening to you, there definitely seems a theme because when you're talking about earlier, you were like, what's wrong with me? Every time you were feeling sick. And you can almost see the transition in your mindset, like from what's wrong with me to like, okay, questioning what's happening to me. Like, what are the choices I'm making that aren't serving me? And I think
Right.
that's a huge flip there where you feel like there's something innately wrong with me versus like I have the choice to make better decisions for myself. Like, would you agree with
Mhm.
that's kind of how you transition
Yes.
there?
Yes.
Mhm.
And yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And there was a lot of grief too, because some of these things I really loved the taste. I really
Yeah.
loved when it was in my mouth. And then I did feel deprivation. I'm like, well, okay, I went through a bit of like, I'm being punished because
Mhm.
my body can't have it.
Oh.
I guess I know I'm not being anymore. I
No
love
worries.
it. It totally, my phone totally leapt out of the little tripod. I love
That's why it must have really resonated with it.
it. Really the energy level. Like, oh,
Yes, yes.
sorry about that. But what was I saying?
Um, well, you didn't feel like you're depriving yourself, that you felt
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah. So I felt like I had to give up things and it was punishment at
yeah,
first. Um,
right.
but at the same time, once I started feeling better,
Mhm.
and I was like, wow, I still felt a little bit bummed out, but as I started to feel better, noticed that I didn't bloat and I didn't have this pain in my stomach, that
Yeah.
my energy didn't tank, that my heart wasn't racing. All of a sudden it was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And that did take a bit of a journey, but my mind finally realized, wow, when I do this and I put it in my mouth and I eat it, I'm gonna have to walk around feeling like literally crap.
Yeah.
Could be 2 hours, it could be 24 hours, it could be 48 hours. And is that the choice I want to make?
Yeah.
So it was, getting that process to cause and effect, impact of this and that, and going through, again, that sometimes the grief of losing something that I associated pleasure with. And just to add to that, when I realized one of the biggest impacts that hit me was we celebrate around food. We join and have companionship around food. But what I realized was it was really the companionship and the joy of being with my family or the joy of being with my friends that I really wanted. It wasn't necessarily the food that was the big deal, but I had those flipped.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. There's such an emotional part of like food. And like, it's not just sheer of like what you put in your mouth. Like there's so many deeper aspects to the behaviors around food. So I love that you talk about that and that it's not just about what you do, but it is a social construct. It is about family. It is about gathering. It is about like, there are just like subconscious pressures around like food and eating and enjoying it. And so it becomes very complicated, like when you have that relationship with food, to kind of delve into how do we make healthier choices when there's so many deeper levels to what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm finally learning I can go to a birthday party and still celebrate a birthday, but I know my body will feel physically sick if I eat the cake. No one cares if I eat the cake, to be honest. And, and if they do care that much, you can still say, no, I don't want to feel sick the rest of the day.
Right.
Oh, no, I'm not high maintenance,
Yeah.
but I'm learning that I can have fun and celebrate with people and enjoy life without sacrificing my health. And that's been like the most wonderful flip in the way I think. So
absolutely. And I know you talked about the yo-yo dieting, and I know it's like that's such a common thing with people who experience yo-yo dieting. I mean, you see it all the time. It's like the new fad, and then people diet and then it's so restrictive and then they kind of go off the deep end on the other way. Like, what do you think contributes to why so many people yo-yo diet?
Yeah, well, in my case and in my clients' cases, I realized that we can get so caught up in the end result. We just want to get there. And we don't care how we get there necessarily, as long as I look it on the outside and I can fit in that bikini in 30 days when I'm on vacation or whatever it might be. And we get there, but the way that we got there was in such a fashion that's not sustainable, that it probably was low calorie. You probably cut out a lot of things that you enjoyed in life. And it was a suffering process.
Right.
And for me, I would get there. And even after I was diagnosed, I did a 500 calorie diet. I did umpteen different pills. I did, I yo-yoed myself up and down, but I started to pay attention, so my reason, what I want to say is that we yo-yo, in my belief, because we're so focused on the end result that we don't learn much in the process of what worked, what didn't work. And we did it in such a fashion that it was such an extreme change. Our mind and our lifestyle, everything, we're like, this is horrible. I can't live like. And then you knee jerk back and you're like, no, I want my chips. I want these pancakes. I want those things that I had to give up. And now I'm miserable emotionally because I don't have them. So So I believe that that's a lot of the reason we do it, is that we can be so focused on that end goal that we'll do it no matter what it takes. And then we can't live in that lifestyle. It just doesn't
Absolutely.
fit. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing too, I've heard you say it a few times, is the idea of giving something up. And that goes back into like psychology. When we feel like we're giving something up, it's our brains will actually resist that. But if we replace it with something, it's more accepting of that. Did you find that when you were transitioning out of yo-yo dieting, that you replaced that giving up mentality with like, how do I replace it with something that's serving me better?
yes, and I love what you're using that word
Hmm.
serving me, in the aspect, because once I changed my vocabulary from good food, bad food,
Yeah.
you know, this is bad, or and usually the bad is that, me, it was Kraft caramels melted on popcorn. It was
Hmm. Yeah.
okay.
Sounds good. I've never had that, but that sounds very good.
That's what
Yeah.
my mom used to make. And once I realized, like, I loved that because we all would sit around together.
Yeah.
And so I
Hmm.
realized that, but it doesn't serve me. I feel sick after,
Yeah.
right? So I love that when we talk about food as, does it serve me? Does it support me? Is it non-supportive in my goal? And then, looking at an item, maybe what do I associate with it? Is
Hmm.
it mainly the sugar addiction? Is there something I'm trying to fill a void with? Like
Hmm.
for me, the caramel popcorn ended up being, it brought back a wonderful memory. So anytime I had that caramel popcorn, I thought about me being a kid. We're all sitting around it, having a great time. And so I wanted the popcorn so I could bring back that wonderful memory. But what I realized was I can pull that memory up anytime I want without the popcorn. And
Right.
I feel the love and the, wonderful
Mhm.
memory coming back. And so it was that the memory supports me.
Mhm.
In this
Yeah.
case, the caramel popcorn, doesn't quite support me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
And I'm okay with that. And sometimes I will still have it, but I don't eat the whole. I used to make this massive bowl just for myself.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm not sharing this with
Yeah.
anyone. This is my memory, my
Yeah.
thing. And
Mhm.
later I'm just like, oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So figuring out that relationship, has really helped,
Mhm.
and not making knee jerk decisions, with food anymore.
Yeah.
Based on that, I hope I didn't ramble.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely makes sense. And I know so many people can relate. Like I can think back to things that I ate too. And I'm like, it is that emotional connection to food, not just that, oh, it tastes good. Like it's so surfacey when it's like, oh, it just tastes good. That's why I eat. But there's such a deeper level. So like, thank you for talking about
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
as far as like what goes into what we eat. There's so much more than just, doing it. But like for someone who's experiencing that now and like struggles with that, like, oh yes, I always go to this every time I'm stressed or I feel alone, like I always go to that food. Like what would you say to that person as far as like shifting their mindset? Like how would they get to the point where they always go to that comfort to where you are now, and that you can have a healthier relationship with that?
yeah. So I would suggest, really looking at what that food item means to them in that context of,
Mhm.
number one, it's probably savory. It probably tastes really good. But also, is there another attachment to it that is deeper? Like comfort food, we think of, um, memories that have been loving, or maybe around that food item.
Mhm.
Or it could be a thing of, well, I've been really upset, and this item just, if I'm going to go eat it in the closet, for
Mhm.
some reason, I have a private moment with this food item. Somehow
Mhm.
it's serving something else,
Mhm.
other. Find out if what it's serving in terms of the emotional connection to
Yeah.
the food. And then you can look at it and say, how is it chemically, because it, when we put it in, it turns into some kind of a chemical reaction within our body. How is it serving us here? And do those two, really connect and truly support us. And so when I started to think about this too, is like, am I bored? I'm stressed, and what other way, how can I be resourceful to figure out what's another way I could support myself during this moment versus just a knee-jerk reaction. In my book, Your Personal Journey with Food, my co-author Ingrid writes about the food connection and how it stems from even when we're infants and just born, and that we just an innate reaction that we have this thing of like food and putting things into our mouth soothe us as a child. And so if we can see that as like it's just a automatic response. So I recommend a lot, just you take a step back before you eat whatever it might be out of boredom or stress. Know what it is, read labels. Does this support me? And also breathing. There's wonderful breathing techniques just to bring that nervous system down. Really good ones called box breathing. There's an app actually out there called box breathing, and it times you, and you can breathe in for whatever the time is you want. You have 5 breaths in, you hold for 5, breathe out for 5, hold for 5, all through your nose. And it just, calms that nervous system down and gives you time to think through your choices. So that's one area that could help someone who, the body gets up, says, let's go find the fridge. Or let's go get the candy machine.
Right.
Let's go.
And it's, I love how you talk about like the subconscious mind. It's like these things that we don't even think about or question. And like, that's developed from ages 0 to 7, that like, that's our subconscious mind. We have all these stories that we tell ourselves that if we don't question them, we're just going to continue living our lives with that because that's all we know. And so, I like how you talked about how like take that moment, like question, what is it behind this? And what, is it serving you or is it not? And having your conscious, rational brain question your subconscious is so important for going in a different direction, because it is like when we're stressed, like our rational brain, the prefrontal cortex actually shuts down. So we don't have those rational thoughts to be like, is this serving me in a good way? So it is like taking that moment, like you're saying, the box breathing gives us a moment to get out of that stress response and be able to turn on the rational brain in a better way.
Right. And my other piece of advice is when we turn that one back on, sometimes it can be kind of a booger in a way. I mean, and it can be, how do I want to say it? If we could teach it to be resourceful and kind in its process of speaking to us. Because my rationale was for a while, I can't believe you did that. Look at the label, for crying out loud. You did it again. Oh my goodness. Now it's like, it's interesting. And now I'm like, okay, let's check out the label first. Let's be resourceful. Is this going to serve me? Nope. Put the whip away. Nope. Whip goes bye-bye. We're learning. We're progressing. We're learning a new thing. Then the little whining happens. It's like, okay, no problem. And then you can make a decision. And if you choose, say, no, I want this. I'm going to have my caramel. Then you have slowed down enough to make the choice. You're still going to have it, but then eat it mindfully.
Yeah.
Oh, are you okay?
I think it froze there. There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
But if you make a choice to still go ahead and eat it mindfully, savor it, make sure you're thinking about what the ingredients are that are going in, how they're going to serve you. and let like if it's a candy bar, let it melt all over your tongue again, and eat it in a way where you can process what it is, how it really tastes. I've had some clients go, gosh, it actually doesn't taste very good.
Yeah, it's amazing how your perception changes.
Once you start to
Yeah.
think about, so have fun with that. It's really fun if we look at it that way. It's like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, what am I going to discover today about what my perceptions have actually
Mhm.
been?
Yeah.
It could be a lot of fun. So
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I like how you talked about the fun, because it is that curiosity. Like we're meant to be curious and try different things and do things
mhm.
differently, but we get into such a regimen, like, no, this is what I do. And it's like part of that regimen is like, I eat the candy bar, I feel guilty, I feel shameful, and then I have negative self-talk, and then I do it again. And you get into that rut. So it's like when you give your brain a different option, it can be fun. Like it doesn't have to be what you always know. Like make it a curiosity thing where you're like, okay, let me have a different experience with this. So I love that.
So I figure if we are gonna be eating, we have to consume energy to live.
Hmm.
And I see nothing wrong with enjoying the process of our
Hmm.
food and eating, but that slowing down and honestly knowing it. I don't know if you've ever done this too. You're busy and you're not thinking too much, and you're eating dinner and you look down and you're like, "Where's my food?
Hmm.
Who ate my
Yeah.
food for crying out
Yeah.
loud?" And it's like, "Oh, I ate it. I don't remember eating it.
Hmm.
I got no pleasure from it, and now I want to go get some more because I didn't even taste it."
Right.
And so slowing down is like, what do they say too? Usually at Christmas or Thanksgiving and these big holidays, takes
Hmm.
hours to make the meal and it's gone in
Hmm.
5 minutes.
Hmm.
What if we spent 20 minutes or 30 minutes just savoring each bite and
Hmm.
having fun? I like doing it around the table too. Sometimes everybody's like, okay, let's just enjoy this. And
Yeah.
I'm salivating right now thinking
Yeah.
about food. It's hilarious.
Right. Especially when you talk about Thanksgiving.
I
But yeah,
know.
it's a sensory experience. And if we're depriving
Yeah,
our senses of that,
yeah.
then we're really missing a big picture of it. It is enjoy the sensory inputs that you're getting from the food.
And
Absolutely.
what's interesting too, and you're probably very aware, is like how much
Mhm.
time it takes for the stomach to tell us we're full, right? I mean, it's like 20 minutes, I think, is
Yeah,
roughly.
yeah, it can. Yeah, it takes a while. Yes, the slower you eat, the more satiating it becomes. Hmm.
Yeah. So if we eat in 5 to 10 minutes,
Hmm.
we could have two platefuls by then, and our stomach hasn't even had the opportunity to say, we're good, we're full, we don't need any more food. And then we're bloated and our tummy hurts and
Hmm.
everyone's passed out, you know, for how many hours after. And if we eat that way every single day, which was me, I scarfed my food. Also, I'm youngest of six. So we would sit
I
around and be like,
think
okay, who's on their second?
the volume
Dude,
just went
so and
up.
so's
There
going
we
on
go.
their second. I,
Yeah.
gonna run get a second.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how like how different it is when you take the moment versus like you don't even know what happened. It's like driving your car and getting somewhere. You're like, how do I even get here? Like,
yeah, yeah. And it's fun
yeah.
when you think about like these little habits we have. And I just chuckle, like, okay, I know where that came from. I had to race. I was the youngest of six. My oldest siblings, 15 years older than me, they're gonna eat a lot more than me.
Hmm.
And I knew if I didn't get my second plate in, I was gonna be hungry at
Hmm.
bedtime. And so it was like this plot along that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that again goes to the psychology behind it all. It's like all these things. It's not just a sheer like you're eating, like there's so many other things that play a role in that.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so mindful eating, it doesn't mean you're zenning out,
Mhm.
you're doing yoga at dinner. And it's
Mhm.
about you just pay attention, savor, appreciate the food that you have in front of you, and
Mhm.
allowing yourself to savor it and also think about how it's serving you.
Mhm.
And then eating at a pace where your body can tell you either, oh, this hurts, this makes me feel awful, or this makes me feel good. Okay, I'm not bloating. Oh, okay, I'm full.
Mhm.
That's the other
Yeah.
thing. I got confused between what bloating was and being full was.
Mhm.
So I would eat we grew up with lots of cheese and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was like when I ate a creamier cheese, I was full in about 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I would be confused. I can't actually be full. So I'd still keep putting more of it in my mouth because I knew one piece of cheese, like a chunk of brie, for example, couldn't fill me up. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So again, that's where I had the confusion between what is full and what is bloated.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important to make that differentiation because a lot of times when we're just eating to eat and like there's a lot of emotions around it, we actually lose that interoception, like our ability to actually be in tune with what we're experiencing. So it is like when you become more mindful, you actually get more in tune with your body's cues. And like that is a huge thing because we kind of like numb out to that in many cases. So it's so important.
And that brings me up to thought of you'd asked me what one main thing was that helped me incredibly was when I used to make my body just suck it up. It was gonna eat whatever I put in it. I didn't care. It should obviously I'm being told by everyone else, all these commercials, that this is supposed to make me feel good. So you should feel good, to where I developed love and empathy for it. And then I realized it's really my best friend. I look at it now, it's my best friend. It's like, oh my God, we're in this together. I get to have an opportunity to experience this life in this amazing, vessel. And it always wants to do the best for me. It always does. And it's always talking back. Not in a bad way. It's always talking. Well, yeah, I might. Hey,
yes, it might. Yes.
I got pre-diabetes down here. You got to fix this. It's always talking back with me or telling me things. And it's up to me to be aware and listen and take the time, which I never wanted to have to take the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guarantee you it's so worth taking the time.
Yeah. And having that shift where you feel from like an enemy to your advocate. I mean, it's a night and day living experience when you start appreciating everything that it does for you. It literally gives you a whole new life. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. Total gratitude for it, no matter. And that was the other thing when I learned that it didn't matter what state it was in at the time. If I had gratitude for it, no matter what condition, my relationship with it would skyrocket off the chart. And my exercise also changed from a punishment to a let's see what you can do. Let's see what you're capable of. And it became a whole different thing. So versus a punishment back and forth, it was like, okay, let's figure this out. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, I'm sorry, you feel like crap. Okay, we'll take a note. I'm gonna note it and I'll do better next time. You know what I mean? This feels really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a big thing when you talk about the exercise too, because I mean, you can literally have the same amount of exercise. You could run 2 miles and hate your body, do it because you hate your body, or you could run 2 miles and do it because you love your body. And so it's not necessarily about the behavior. It's like, what's the driving force behind it? And that is such an important differentiation to make.
Well, and what I found too, and so I'm health coach, but I also have, I'm a personal trainer at the same time. And so I'll have people test this out, and we can test it out now. It's kind of fun. So if we're sitting here now, I can already feel it happen because I'm already telling my body this, you're so weak. Like tell yourself that you're weak. Your biceps are really weak. There's no way you can lift this. I physically feel that. And my poor little biceps are feeling that right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just kidding. Okay, wait, no, you're strong. You've got this. You've got strength. You can do this. Maybe we have to start small, but you're going to be strong. It's a whole different feeling. And so how we talk to ourselves, and the body hears you. right? So if we know our body hears you talking and feeling negative and you hate it, it makes me want to what?
Yeah. Yeah,
Versus, oh,
absolutely.
God, I love you. You're my friend and we're gonna figure it out.
Mhm.
It's like, whoa, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I feel that. You physically feel the difference.
Oh, absolutely. And it is like for anyone who's going through there, like, well, if I just start saying that language, would it really make a difference? It really does. Like, it really does make a difference when you just change how you the language around how you talk to
Yeah,
yourself. And it's those little nuances that either like, again, serve you or don't serve you. And it's like,
yeah,
ask yourself every time you say something, start questioning your inner thoughts. And is like, is it serving you or is it not? And it
yeah,
really does make a difference.
yeah. And it takes practice. So
Mhm.
sometimes, I even, all the practice I've done with myself, sometimes I still get up in the morning and it's really interesting. But I'm aware now. I'll
Mhm.
sense, that negative thought or the
Mhm.
part that's the old me, I want to say, the
Mhm.
personality that I still appreciate because I
Yeah.
learned so much, but I'll say, well, no, we're good, and so even for me, and no one's perfect.
Mhm.
I still go, horrible sugar addiction that I got through doesn't mean it
Mhm.
doesn't rear its head
Mhm.
sometimes. And I'm fighting to get out of the store without buying Skittles or
Uh-huh.
whatever,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
so the reality I think too is that I thought, back to yo-yoing, I thought that once I figured it out how to get my body a certain way, it would always be easy. And it
Mhm.
should be easy and I would arrive and I would and I should just stay that way.
Yeah.
And it's a lifelong journey that has so much value for you,
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for
so
highlighting that because I think people need to hear that because even if you have a good routine, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be days that you don't like fall off, but it doesn't mean you're failing. It just means
yeah,
like, okay, let me get back on, on
yeah,
track. So like, thank you for saying that because I think that is such a common mentality. Think people think like, oh, I had a bad day. That's it. I blew it, and it's
I'm gonna hang
not the
it up.
case. Like, yeah, everyone has days where you tend to maybe you'll eat a little bit more sugar and it happens, but
Mhm.
it's not a linear journey by any means.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how mine was like, I was way down here and then I go wee and I went boom and I go
Yeah.
ah, oh,
Yeah.
and then
The
I
zigzag.
learn and
Yeah.
but I realized my trajectory was still kind of going this way.
Yep.
And once I also I pretty much took the time limit off.
Mhm.
That was huge. And I
Yeah.
think, well, if I just do some of this each day,
Mhm.
the it has to the result has to be this. So,
Yeah.
well, okay, let's just see what happens. Let's see
Mhm.
what we can create. It's more
Yeah.
about creating versus losing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And like part of that, have you ever read the book The Compound Effect? But it's like what you're talking about is like right on. Do you have it? Yeah, I mean, it's right on because it's not about like making these overhaul changes. It's about doing just something, a little bit of something every day. And that just makes your whole life different a year from now, So it really is about that. And then it gives you grace. Like you don't have to do all these big changes. You just have to do something a little different, 1% better every day. And that's it.
Highly recommend the book. And I'm looking
Yeah.
on the floor. I know my here.
Yes.
Compound.
Yes. Love it.
I printed out and this one is fun. I have different years. So this one I just
Mhm.
happened to find. It was fun. This one's from 2021.
Mhm.
And so I made my little chart. You can
Yeah.
print, I can see it, but you can go to the website,
Yep.
print the papers, and some of the stuff is like in my book where you kind of do an assessment.
Mhm.
Sometimes you don't like doing the assessment because you don't
Yeah.
like what you're seeing. But
Mhm.
until you see the truth,
Mhm.
how do you do anything about it? So if you can do the assessment with those eyes of let's discover what's going on. And I
Mhm.
may not like what I see, but I'm not going to harshly beat myself up, because obviously something needs to be adjusted. So let's figure out what it is. And this really
Yeah.
forces you to do that. The compound effect, yes, it's a little book. It's not that big.
No,
And
yeah.
yeah, and you can get the PDF downloads for free off
Yep.
his website.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit at a time. And I'm so glad you brought it up, because I really, I found that at the right time, and started utilizing it, and it
Mhm.
helped take off a lot of that pressure.
Absolutely. It makes such a difference for
Yeah.
sure. For anyone who wants to connect with you, Tracy, how would they find you, and what things are you working on? I know you have a new book, but like just if you just share
Yeah.
what you're doing and how people can find you.
Yeah. So my book is called Your Personal Journey with Food.
Mhm.
And I co-authored it with I met Ingrid when I was going through school with the Institute for Integrative Nutrition.
Mhm.
She's from Santiago, Chile.
Oh, awesome.
And
Yeah.
we were peer coaches through school. And we realized that even though we're 6,000 some miles away, we had the same challenges with food, slightly
Yeah.
different reasons.
Mhm.
And we both had progressed through those challenges in very similar ways.
Yeah.
And so we thought we need to write this in a book. And the book, similar to the compound effect, this
Mhm.
one starts with an assessment. And the reason we did that was it also helps you know what chapter to read first. So
Oh,
sometimes,
yeah.
you'll read chapters that you're like, "Ah, it's not resonating with me," because you need to actually address something else first. So our goal was to make it so you could do that. So you can find this book on Amazon or go to any independent bookstore and
Mhm.
order it. But it's Your Personal Journey with Food.
Mhm.
It's a roadmap for the confused and frustrated diet. And we
Yeah.
talk about things like mindfulness, figuring out your whole you, becoming
Mhm.
whole, self-image, diets, relationships, intuition, food sensitivities, the food industry,
Yeah.
and
Big one.
just
Yeah.
it's just a starting point. And for anyone that buys the book, there's actually a website you can go to, similar to the compound effect.
Mhm.
That I have all the PDFs that are in the book you can download, and you can
Mhm.
also, there's videos in there for you, where I'll be speaking about each chapter.
Yeah.
So you can touch base with me that way. I'm on Instagram, as well as Facebook. And then my website's tracycromwell.com. So
Mhm.
there's information there for me. Yeah.
Great. I love it. And I'll share everything in the show notes for anyone listening. If you want to connect
Yeah,
with Tracy, definitely do so. And that book sounds amazing. So, for anyone who's struggling with food, or any of this resonates with you, definitely check out that book. Sounds awesome.
absolutely. And yeah, I do offer one-on-one coaching. And then I also have, it's a 30-day junk food and sugar
Mhm.
debunk challenge. We're
Mhm.
just getting through, we've got 10 more days left at the time of this recording here of the prior one. And I'll be relaunching again in March. So I'm doing about
Awesome.
every 90 days. So give you an
Yeah.
opportunity to, and to learn about yourself. It's not what you think it's going to be. It's better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so those are some opportunities for folks to connect or participate.
That's awesome. I love it. It sounds great. And it's just, there's so many opportunities. So again, if any of this resonated with you, definitely take hold of those opportunities to invest in yourself. It's such an amazing thing when you finally invest in yourself. So thank you
Yes.
so much, Tracy, for sharing your story and everything you shared today. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you.
Oh, you too. You too so much. And I really appreciate you having me on. And yes, I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you. And again, I'll put everything in the show notes for anyone listening. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. And if you have any questions for Tracy or myself, absolutely ask them. We would love to answer anything that you would like to know further. So thank you again. And thank you for spending your precious time with me.
Thank you, everybody.